Flyweights should never main event a pay-per-view, and I'm trying to say this as respectful as possible, but this is just facts. They do not gather that much attention. I mean, just look at the last UFC pay-per-view. I'm talking about UFC 301. Its main event between Steve Erceg versus Pantoja. Now, it was a badass fight to watch, but let's be real. The views and the engagement were not there for this fight. When the flyweights main event a pay-per-view, the general audience just doesn't care. This has been a real issue for the flyweight division for a very long time, which is a bummer because if you ask me, it's such an exciting and skilled division. Take Alexander Pantoja, the champ. He's got this fun brawling style that really should have brought more eyes to the division. His epic fights with Brandon Moreno in 2023 was one of the best fights of the year. Honestly, if Pantoja was in any other division, he'd probably be much of a bigger draw like Charles. Actually, I kind of take that back. I'm not sure why, but the crowd in Brazil doesn't seem too into Pantoja's fights. Especially against Steve Erceg recently. It felt like they were really there for just Jose Aldo, since a bunch of them started heading out right during the post-fight interview. It's weird because Pantoja doesn't get much love from the Brazilian fans, especially when you see how pumped the Mexican fans are about Brandon Moreno. And he's a flyweight too, you know? But yeah, it seems like in general, like the only hardcore fans are into the flyweight division. The everyday casual MMA fan, not so much. I guess it's because the fighters are 125 pounds, they're smaller, and there's no easy way to put it. These guys hardly ever get any knockouts. So naturally, they get overshadowed by the heavier classes that deliver these big knockouts, these big finishes. They just don't grab the casuals fans' attention, even if they put on a good fight and showing some serious skills. And that's the thing, right? The flyweight division actually has a ton of cool fights, believe it or not. It's not all about knockouts. There are loads of wild brawls and finishes. You hardly ever get those boring grappling fests like in some other weight classes. Off the top of my head, I can give you some fun fights that happen in this weight class, like Demetrius Johnson versus Dodson, the second fight between Henry Cejudo and DJ, and any of the fights between Figgy versus Moreno. But the result has always been the same, which is people just don't care. We have had dominant champions like Demetrius Johnson, and despite Demetrius Johnson being one of the best fighters in the UFC, he never became a box office hit. Part of the reason was that he fought in the flyweight division. Sure, you can say that the UFC never promoted him a lot, but I still think the result would have been the same. Regardless, people just don't care about the flyweight division. Take Figgy for an instance. His nickname is the freaking God of War, and he was smashing through opponents with finishes left and right. Obviously, before he fought Brandon, he still wasn't pulling in pay-per-view buys. It's a recurring headache for the flyweight division. They just don't have a standout draw. I think what the flyweights need to do is to make some noise, and they need some characters. They need some trash talking. They need to bring some momentum to this weight class in general. And there's only one fighter I've seen who's promoting himself very well in that weight class, and that is Manel Kape. He really knows how to promote himself. Maybe he's a little bit in the edgier side, but he definitely makes more noise than their champion. Most other fighters just don't stand out as much. The only issue with Kape lately is that he struggles to make weight. It seems like other flyweights can take a page from his playbook when it comes to his gimmick, but obviously tone it down a bit so it feels natural and brings some personality to their game. And look, I get in some of the heavier weight classes, fighters don't really need to talk trash. They gain momentum through their styles and winning by fights. But the key difference is they're up against bigger names and more established fighters that the casual fans know of. Plus, their division is known for their knockouts and finishes and building legacies, which naturally draws more attention, unlike the flyweight division that doesn't have any big names. Take Charles Oliveira as an example. The guy was on a wild streak, taking down big names like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje, and even faced off against the division's boogeyman, Islam, who's seen as Khabib's protege at the time. And Charles had this incredible underdog story that you didn't really find in the flyweight division, and that's a big reason why people were so into him. And that's just the thing, the current flyweights are very fun to watch, but most of them are too nice to talk trash, which is the problem. They've got some boring ass personalities. The only time it was somewhat popular is when Moreno versus Figgy was happening. Their rivalry was the only thing that brought some momentum to the division, but other than that, these guys don't really promote themselves as well. Manel Kape is the only savior for this weight class to gain some momentum. A lot of fighters forget that most people are watching are just casual fans looking for entertainment. Whether it's a fierce fight, a knockout, or some crazy hype leading into a bout, Honestly, it's pretty straightforward. Even if your fights are okay, if you made people laugh or made them entertained, they'll probably like you. Take the trade involving Ben Askren for an example. Some folks thought it was a bad move, but actually it turned out pretty well. Ben may have lost the fight, but his personality and the drama he brought made the UFC a lot more money. That loss even turned Masvidal into a huge star for a while. The excitement and the buzz were so big that it paid off big time. And on top of that, Ben didn't just show up, he stirred the pot, talked a big game, and even after getting knocked out, he still made a ton of cash. It goes to show you that some of these fighters are onto something with their strategy for making money fast in the game. Even DJ later admitted that he probably should have spiced things up with some trash talk. Personally though, I don't think things will change unless Cap captures the belt, so I guess time will tell. But what do you guys think? Do you guys ever think the flyweights could draw? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.